Hi, and welcome to this edition of Fresh Hope for Mental Health. Our mission here at Fresh Hope for Mental Health is to empower you to live well in spite of your mental health challenge by sharing insights through interviews, practical tools for living well, encouragement, and courage for overcoming all from a Christian perspective. And now, here's your host, Pastor Brad Hafes.
Hello, my friend, and welcome to this edition of Fresh Hope for Mental Health. I'm Brad Hafes, your host, and our purpose here at Fresh Hope for Mental Health is to empower you to live a rich, full, faith-filled life, no matter what, in spite of having a mental health challenge. And I have a special guest with me today, somebody I kind of knew about, but now have met. At least here on as we prepared for this podcast. And her name is Ruby Lucas, and she's a new author. And Ruby, I'm so glad to have you with me today.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. Well, thank you. And thank you for sharing your story with the world.
Thank you.
It's going to be helpful, I'm certain, to many people. And if you would, just tell us about yourself. Tell those of us who are hearing your voice, tell us about you.
So I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder when I was 19 years old. And I can kind of backtrack a little bit from there. I had anxiety that was really bad that started when I was 5 years old. Every night I would run into my mom's bedroom and tell her, "Mommy, my heart is beeping so fast." And she didn't back then it was 38 years ago, and she didn't realize that it was anxiety and panic attacks, because back then there weren't labels for that stuff.
Right.
That was not easy for a mother to handle when you're ignorant about it. So anyway, aside from that, when I was a little kid, I was a normal, happy child, and everybody said that I was just enthusiastic about everything. But then I was 14 years old and my hormones took over.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. I said in my book that I hit the genetic lottery in my family because on my mom's side, like, mental illness is just rampant. And then there's also a lot of anxiety on my dad's side. So I came down with what was diagnosed as depression, but I found out later that it was actually manic depression, which is kind of hard to explain, that someone would be manic and depressed at the same time.
Right.
It's
dysphoric.
Yeah. So what we just thought that I was depressed or whatever, but I ended up losing my best friend. And ever since my depression started, I just remember crying myself to sleep every single night. It didn't matter what happened that day, whether it was a good day or a bad day. My pillow was just drenched in tears and snot.
Oh my. Yeah.
And then, by my senior year in high school, I ended up almost crying wherever I was. I could have just cried on a dime. And I remember doing that constantly. And even when I was at school. So when I was at school and I was in study hall, I would sit far away from everybody else around me. And I would put my backpack on the table in front of me and then just put my head down and sob the entire time.
Wow.
So that's what I did. I cried all the time. So,
wow.
And interestingly, my mom's friend came over to our house one day because she knew that I had panic attacks on a daily basis ever since high school. And she wanted to ask me how to handle a panic attack. And so I told her, I explained to her how to handle it. And I said something to the effect of, like, my panic attacks last weeks and sometimes even months. And when I said that to her, she was taken aback, and she was like,
Wow.
she was like, my panic attacks last 20 minutes. I didn't realize.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So yeah, it was a big thing. I just remember. So the reason why I cried all the time was just part of my illness. But I would have these like obsessive, scary, I just felt unsafe all the time. And I had all these scary thoughts about like irrational thoughts, like of just thinking that my mom would get in a car accident today or my brother would get cancer tomorrow. And it was so prominent in my mind that it was like almost like it was happening, even though it wasn't, because
Yeah.
my mind was running so much.
Mm,
So that is what my early life was like.
wow.
And then I did a forward exchange program to Belgium.
You
And
did,
yes, I
even
did.
though even though you had, yeah, wow.
Yeah, so actually, so I actually only went to school in high school 2 to 3 days a week, and because my mom knew that school was only adding to my depression because I was so smart that it just made me bored all the time and it made me depressed.
Wow.
So the line between genius and mentally ill is very fine. So
Yes.
I tested out as a genius when I was in school, and then when I went to do my study abroad is when I crossed over the line and had my first manic episode.
Mm.
Um, and I was there. I was hospitalized, I think, for 2 weeks while I was there, and then so my family back in New York was living through my entire episode from America's perspective. My parents wanted to go to Belgium to see me, but they couldn't afford to do it. So
Oh boy. Yeah.
um, I was escorted home by a doctor on the plane
Oh wow.
because, yeah, so my mania was really, really bad. I spent, once everything got in full swing, I stayed up all night long singing and dancing.
Mm.
And I like my sleepless nights just piled up, and I scared everybody.
Wow. Wow.
um, so yeah, so I got escorted home, and then I was met I met a terrible nurse practitioner, and at that point in my life, I was in complete denial. I just did not think that I had anything wrong with me. So the dynamic in her office between her, me, and my mom there was so much friction and tension. It was just awful.
Now,
Um,
how old
and
were you at that point?
so this is I got diagnosed at 19 in Belgium. So I was still 19 when I met her.
Okay.
Um, And so at a certain point, I was in so much denial that I just was angry all the time because all of these people were telling me that I was sick and I was convinced that I wasn't. So
Sure.
at a certain point, I told my mom that you're not allowed to come to these appointments with me anymore. It's just between me and my nurse practitioner. And because I was so persuasive about my denial, I was actually able to convince her that I wasn't sick at all.
Oh wow.
And yeah, and she she just told me to go off of all of my meds cold turkey. So
Oh.
it was totally irresponsible of her to tell me to go off my meds, but at the least she should have weaned me off of them,
Yeah.
and she didn't. So I got launched into my second psychotic episode, and it started in August and it ended in mid-November, and
Mm.
I terrified everybody, including myself. So I was at school. I was at a large university in New York, in upstate New York, and I had another episode where I wasn't sleeping at all. Like I remember one night I stayed up all night and I thought that I was Martin Luther King Jr. and that the country needed me, and I wrote out a manifesto about it, and I
Oh
was
my.
just, yeah, it was
Wow.
like totally, my case of bipolar is massively profound. Like
Yeah.
it has gotten bad. So I'm trying to think of like how all the events happened during that entire time.
Mm.
I went through my boyfriend at the time was taking advantage of my high energy levels. So that
Sure.
was a whole nother beast or whatever. And then, so I was going in and out of facilities in Albany, and my mom had found out that they're only allowed to give me one medication according to state law, and I needed like 6 medications. But because of my illness, so part of my bipolar, when I'm in the middle of a psychotic episode, weirdly, I push my family away. So anytime that like my siblings came in to visit me at the facility, I would be screaming my head off and forcefully, physically pushing them out of the building.
Oh my, yeah.
But the thing was, so the only person in my life that I did not shun was my boyfriend, but he was abusing me the entire time. So like that, so in my book, I try to explain to people that that's what mental illness is. Um, so I can quote this one little bit of my book where I said, during my entire episode, I was horrified out of my mind, literally, and I was helpless to do anything about it. And that's what mental illness is.
Yeah.
Every time that anyone in my family came to visit me at the facility, my behavior would spin out of control as I forced them out the door, screaming the entire time. The catch, though, is that during those exact times of screaming at my family to leave, my heart was begging and pleading for them to stay, for them to rescue me.
Right.
I knew how sick I was. I knew I wasn't sleeping and that I easily could have died at any moment, and I was desperate. So the feeling that a person has when their brain like betrays their heart to that degree is like something that only a mentally ill person can understand. Like psychosis is something only a mentally ill person can. You can only understand it if you've been there yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that just added to the loneliness that I had in my heart. It was a very profound loneliness.
I always liken it to that there, like 99% of your brain is not functioning properly, but 1% knows that there's a problem.
I know. Yeah, exactly.
And that it's very interesting because they say that the brain, and I'm not going to know what it technically is called, but has like its own part. The brain and the heart are very connected, and the heart has something, I may have this wrong, but that it has like its own little brain or own little systematic, that's where our morals come in. It's very interesting, and I'm certainly not an expert in that. But so when you said your heart knew, I think that's accurate. I think that's accurate. And really, until somebody's been to a point, like you said, where the brain is just really malfunctioning, you don't understand how crazy that can be. I was on our state committee for advising the governor in regards to mental health. And it was not until I was speaking at something to a large group of people and realized that they call it behavioral health science, or that it's behavioral health, because anytime the brain doesn't work right, it affects your behavior.
Yes, I know. I know that.
And I'm like an idiot. Oh, that's why they call it behavioral. Of course, that's why they call it behavioral. So your behavior was very crazy.
So at one point, I mean, when I say I'm not sleeping, I'm not rolling around in bed. I'm straight up dancing and doing ballet and whatever it was. I remember one night at 3:00 in the morning. So this is in Albany. At 3:00 in the morning, I put on like a super nice outfit to wear, and I put on makeup, and I did my hair special, and I put on my favorite pair of wedge sandals, and I wandered down to Henry Johnson Boulevard, and that street is the most dangerous street in Albany. It's on the news constantly for all of the drug deals and murders that happen.
Oh my, yep.
And I went around the corner to a convenience store, and there was a guy in there who was huge. He was like 6'8" and weighed 450 pounds. And as soon as he watched me walk in the door, he started screaming at me, "Go home, little girl, go home now."
Oh.
So that was just like one of them. And then when I got really, really scared, at one point, so I knew how sick I was through the whole thing. And the one point where I knew I'd gotten too big for my own good, I went to a drugstore and I bought a bottle of NyQuil, and I came home and I downed the whole thing in under 5 minutes, and it didn't do a single thing.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah.
I just remember at that point when nothing happened, I felt like I was just at a loss and I was unreachable. And I grabbed my phone and I went into the ladies' room, and my vision blacked out as I dialed 911 and fell to the floor. And then
Mm.
they got an ambulance for me, and there was all sorts of things. So in the whole time that I was at school, there were security guards, there were state troopers, there were ambulances, there were EMTs. It was this big, huge production. And like you were saying, um, when a person is psychotic, like, yes, they're out to lunch and they don't understand anything, but there is a little shred of understanding things.
Yes.
And I knew that the other students, or a lot of the other students around campus, knew the condition that I was in, and they were like, I remember one night they were following me across the courtyard and hooting and hollering and making fun of me and stuff the whole time.
Mm. Wow.
So anyway,
So where did the intervention start? Where
the,
where did you start to turn around?
I finally hit a point, and it must have just been the hand of God, where I actually let my parents come in and talk to me. Oh, you know what actually is even more? So this was the tipping point. So up until now, God hadn't really made an appearance in the situation. And my dad went to his dad to turn to for advice as to what to do. And my grandpa happened to be holding the mortgage of the president of mental health of Albany County. And he owed my grandpa a favor.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Oh, my
So,
word. Isn't
so
that
he got
something?
together with my parents and they talked about it. And he gave my parents a plan of what to do and how to get this to work out. But I think that God didn't need all of that shenanigans to happen, and God himself just intervened with me at the facility, and I just told the people there that I wanted to go to Saratoga by ambulance. And so that was 3 months in coming. That was just huge.
Wow.
So yeah, so that's my second episode. And then so Saratoga Hospital MHU is an amazing place to be. All of the facilities that I was in down in Albany, I remember that, like, up in the showers in the bathroom, like one day there was like poop on the floor of every
Oh, my.
shower. It was just a horrific place to be. And I finally made it up to Saratoga, and they are the cream of the crop. They treat you amazingly well, and it's just such great care. So when I finally made it there, in my book, I just say it's the next chapter of my life, and it was time to recover. So because I went so long without sleeping at all, my mom, like a week into my stay there, just asked the doctor what would ultimately happen, because I was up completely awake the whole time. And the doctor told her that if I still did not sleep that night, that he would go to extreme measures and put me under anesthesia.
Oh, wow.
Because they had me on, I think, like 7 medications, and they were 5 times the strength that anybody would ever even put a person on. Like,
Oh, wow.
I just was so sick.
Yeah.
So I actually never needed to be put under anesthesia, because that night I slept for 15 minutes.
Oh,
And when I
wow.
got up, I got up and all of the staff stood up and gave me a round of applause.
Oh, wow.
So I started sleeping more and more each night, and I was there for a month. And then coming home was a roller coaster of its own, because I hadn't been home in 3 months. And I had to come face to face with all of the consequences of my psychosis, and it was a rough ride. It was not fun.
Mm.
My mom told me ahead of time, tried to warn me ahead of time that my bedroom was a mess, and I didn't really fully understand what she meant until I saw it for myself. And there was just stuff thrown over all of my bedroom. You couldn't even see the carpet. And apparently, during my psychosis, I had given everything to one of the girls down the hall for me in the dorm. And inside that safe was my social security card, my birth certificate, my passport, euros, a camera, just all this stuff. And I didn't even remember giving it to her. And then I logged onto my email account, and I had an email from one of my friends, and it was a long email just about how embarrassed and angry I had made her feel. And I only read a few sentences, and then I just deleted it. I was like, I can't handle all of this. Like, I'm at my limit.
Right.
So let me see. I wrote all this stuff down. I'm kind of skimming through my notes here. I can tell you something really, really, really cool. So the first part of my book is called The Pit, and the second part of my book is called My Jesus, I Love Thee.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's actually something in the first part of my book that comes up again in the part of my book about God. So when I was alone in the facility and I was singing and dancing and stuff, I had a hallucination every night, and it was this epically crazy intense hallucination. There were floor to ceiling windows in the bedroom that I was in, and when I looked out onto the lawn underneath the outside light,
Mm-hmm.
in my psychotic mind, I hallucinated that there were playing cards, humongous playing cards on the lawn, and I played solitaire with those imaginary cards every night.
Oh my.
Yeah, yeah. And so I felt so. The catch here, though, is that I knew that the cards were a hallucination. And I thought that God had given it to me on purpose. I felt like he and I knew that death was imminent, and he graciously wanted me to have a simple, happy distraction of playing a card game as I waited for the moment when my body would just fatally collapse.
Hmm.
So the nights that I spent in that bedroom were the most profound moments of my life.
Yeah. Were you a believer before all of this? Did you know the Lord before all of
No.
this? Or?
Oh, yeah. So I should back up. So I was born into a Christian household for sure.
Okay.
Like, we went to church every Sunday and everything like that. And my parents have always been awesome. I just never reached out to God on my own, but
Sure.
I was fine with him being in my life and stuff. And I think even from an early age, I really, really wanted to have the same relationship that my mom had with God, because she really, really knows the Lord. And eventually that wish was granted. So but I do need to skip a little bit beyond my encounter with God, because it's the other end of what I just said to you about hallucinating in the room. So I was alone in that room, and I felt so alone. So one morning I was just kind of tossing and turning in bed, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, God just bam woke me up, like jolted me awake, and I didn't know why, but he told me to turn on my favorite rendition of the song "Come Thou Fount." And as soon as I did that, I started crying, and I couldn't stop, because when he gave me that song, he showed me that I'm trying to read it right here. So when I turned on the song, in my mind, it was 2008 again, and I was back at the facility in Albany, all alone in my bedroom. And I had loneliness. I had grief. I had despair. but with this song, God showed me that he had filled my room with angels every night that kept watch over me and cared for me with his breath of authority and
Oh,
gentleness.
yeah.
And just the loneliness factor of having a case of bipolar this severe and profound, it's huge. The loneliness is huge.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
so I found a lot of healing, obviously, from having God in my life. And the reason
Yeah.
why I have God in my life is because I went through a trauma when I was 15 and 16 years old, and there was no one who could help me with it because it was a very bizarre situation. It wasn't any abuse that I went through, and it wasn't like anything awful that I witnessed. It was just some bizarre thing. And I wasn't able to find help for it from anybody. And so finally I was like, I can't live like this anymore. I have to address this or I'm not going to function ever again. So I set out on a mission to get to know God, and in under a week I ran into God, and he has been in my life for the last 6.5 years, and we are two peas in a pod.
Wow. Yeah. Wonderful. Tell me, tell me as, tell me what life is like today. What
Life
is,
today.
yeah.
Um,
What's your life like today?
so I have realized that that now that I have God in my life, I kind of go in different phases and seasons where I kind of want something that is of his will and I pray for it and stuff. So lately in my prayers, I've been asking God to give me the grace to like only have positive and true and loving words come out of my mouth towards other people. So that's kind of like the one thing that I'm working on right
Mm-hmm.
now. And
Mm-hmm.
it changes with time and stuff, and it's not necessarily like directly out of the Bible every time or
Sure.
anything,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
um
Would you say you're living well? That
oh,
that
for sure,
life is
for
good
sure.
and
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I had paranoia from. I ended up with a severe case of paranoia after my second episode, and I didn't know that it was linked to my episode. So I suffered from very bad paranoia for I'm trying to think, for 16 years. It was just very
oh
compacted,
wow.
and it really it put me in a mental cage where I was just by myself in this cage, and I just remember sobbing about it. I was like, I'm the most selfish person in the world, and everybody around me was like, no, you're not. You're the most selfless person in the world.
Mm,
But I was like, no, if you knew me, I was in survival mode. And when you're in survival mode, you can't think about anybody but yourself. You just can't.
right,
And I
because
just,
you're trying to survive.
yeah, exactly. And I just remember the pain of that, of going through that every day of my life. And it just isolated me even more, so even more loneliness,
Yeah.
you know?
Yep. Yeah.
So, but anyway, so let's just stop talking about the bad. Let's just talk about the good now.
So, what would you say is been the greatest insight about mental health recovery? You know, the single one thing that you would say is
Uh,
the key
so
factor.
the so I would say there's really only one factor. So part 3 of my book is called The Final Letter, and I write a letter to other people with mental illnesses. The very
Ah,
first, I say to my dear friends struggling with mental illness, and then the one sentence below that says, always remember that you are outrageously loved by an outrageous God.
ah, yeah.
I think
It,
that's the biggest thing.
when you can find the grace to collapse, so to speak, into his loving arms,
Yeah,
then he can put the pieces back together as opposed to trying to hold it together.
yeah,
You
for
know,
sure.
you and me trying to hold it together, it doesn't work. Well, would you mind praying for those who are listening today?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. Lord, I just praise your name and thank you for an opportunity like this to get the news out and to love other people and show people who you are. It's just such a blessing and it's so exciting. I pray, Lord, that people would hear your message in my book. I pray that the Holy Spirit would be there to bring life to the words that are in there. I feel completely called to write a book, and I really want it to reach as many people as possible. I pray that you would learn and grow in God as you seek him in his face. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Okay, now, Ruby, let's get this down. The name of your book is?
I Will Fly, My Journey with Bipolar Disorder.
Okay, I Will Fly, My Journey with Bipolar Disorder. And it's on Amazon, correct?
Yes.
So if people go to Amazon, just type into the search bar, I Will Fly by Ruby Lucas, Lucas. People can find your book there, right?
Yes.
I Will Fly. I like that.
I have, I just wanted you to know that chapter 8 of my book, the title of chapter 8 of my book is Whatever You Have Learned. And it stems from the Bible verse that says, whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice and the God of peace will be with you. And throughout this chapter, God gave me specific tool after tool after tool for defeating the enemy and overcoming this. So I think in this one chapter alone, I think I explain like 7 different ways to combat the enemy.
Wonderful. It sounds like your book is really the primary audience of your book is for those who suffer.
For the loved ones too. For loved ones too.
Well, and I was going to say secondarily for the loved ones so they understand a bit more from a different perspective.
I explain things that like they would never even think of,
Sure. Well, I would encourage, if you're listening, check this book out. Go on Amazon, you can order it there, and read Ruby's story, because I think Scripture says by the power of our testimony, it, lives, others come to know the Lord, others are built up and encouraged. But, that's not just true of the spiritual part of it. It's true of the whole thing.
Yeah, for sure.
We're whole beings, and so it's not just the spiritual version of the testimony or what happened spiritually, but from, how did it work? Where were the breakthroughs and all of those kinds of things? And when you read it, those things will empower you. So if you're struggling, that's why you read the book, or that's why you listen to the testimony or the podcast, because it helps you. And we begin to understand. And when we understand, it's like that small percentage of your brain that was functioning begins to take over. And I always say that my little monster, he's still there. He hasn't gone away, but he lives in the basement and he's chained up. I don't feed him. I don't let him out.
Nice.
I don't even go down to visit him.
Yeah. In the very end of my book, I give, in the letter that I write to them, I define 4 silver linings that we have to our illness, and how God is using all of those to our benefit to help.
Yep. Romans 8:28. He'll take it and make it work for our good.
Yep.
Well, thank you, Ruby, so much for being my guest today. Thank you for sharing your story. We'll have to do this again sometime. I have a feeling we could do several podcasts, or we could go on for hours, and probably people would not last that long with us. But thank you.
Oh, man.
Yeah, really. Thank you so much. And you're putting a website together, right? And it should be live here in the next couple of weeks. Why don't you give us the website
domain
address? Yeah.
Yep. It's iwillflyrubylucas.com.
Okay. I will fly.
There's no buy. There's no buy. It's just I will fly Ruby Lucas.
Okay. I will fly rubylucas.com.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you again for being
Yeah,
here
thank
today. You bet. For those of you who are listening, thank you so much for listening today. And I pray that it was a blessing to you. I believe it probably was. I'd encourage you to check out Ruby's book. If you need other help or need a group or want to talk to somebody or need to talk to a hope coach, please go to freshhope.us. All that kind of information is there. We have groups all over the country. We have groups online, or not just country, but in 39 different countries. So, and if you need Spanish, we have Spanish. We have other languages also. And our Hope Coaches stand by to help people, so feel free to let us know if you'd like to talk to a Hope Coach. And until the next time, my friends, I'm Brad Hafes, your host, and may the Lord hold you firmly in His hope, sure and certain. God bless.
You've been listening to Fresh Hope for Mental Health. If you have an opportunity, please review, share, and subscribe to the Fresh Hope for Mental Health podcast on iTunes or on the service that you use. We encourage you to share our podcast on social media with your friends and family. Previous podcasts of Fresh Hope for Mental Health can be found at freshhopeformentalhealth.com, iHeartRadio, Stitcher Radio, and iTunes. Fresh Hope is one of the leading networks of faith-based peer support groups internationally. For more information about Fresh Hope, go to freshhope.us.